Are we live, Divya?
Yeah, I think on YouTube it says live. So
Right. Divya, if you give me a heads up, we can begin. Okay, awesome. All right, so we're live now. Hello, and a very happy International Youth Day to all of you, and welcome to the launch of Sach Honge Sapne. अंतर्राष्ट्रीय युवा दिवस की आप सभी को बहुत बहुत बधाई और सच होंगे सपने के लॉन्च पर आप सभी का स्वागत है. मेरा नाम रिचा है and I'm the co-founder of Labhya Foundation. Today we will be reimagining youth employability in COVID-19. आज हम बात करने वाले हैं अपने युवा के करियर से जुड़े कुछ स्किल्स और अवसरों के बारे में. This year, a lot has changed and all of us have been affected by the pandemic in various ways. बहुत कुछ बदल रहा है. हम क्या खाते हैं, हम कहाँ जा रहे हैं, सब कुछ बदल रहा है. Everything is getting redefined. Unfortunately, we are also going through some of the toughest times. Many of us, especially us youth, are unsure of our education and, more importantly, are unsure of what is happening beyond the pandemic. We're unsure of what to think of our lives beyond the pandemic. Our youth have had to reevaluate their career paths and look for opportunities in a time where opportunities really seem scarce. हमें लग रहा है कि हमारे अवसर कम होते जा रहे हैं. But even in these difficult times, there is a ray of hope, or maybe multiple rays of hope. As India, the world's youngest country with almost 64% people in the working age group, battles this pandemic, I believe that youth will emerge as the people who help us revive our country and our economy. With this hope, we bring to you Sach Honge Sapne, a web series where youth and experts come together on one platform and talk about soft skills, career pathways, and other interesting things that fascinate young people today. अब मैं आप सभी को ये भी बताना चाहूंगी कि सच होंगे सपने सीरीज के बारे में, जिसके बारे में हम बातचीत करेंगे, यही सेशन इस समय लाइव यूट्यूब पे चल रहा है और हमारे साथ इस वक्त 600 से ज्यादा युवा जुड़े हुए हैं पूरे इंडिया से. इनमें से 50% से भी ज्यादा युवा हमारे साथ गांव और छोटे शहरों से जुड़े हैं और ऑलमोस्ट 55% यूथ 9 to 12 की क्लासेस के बीच से जुड़े हुए हैं. So today, to mark the beginning of Sach Honge Sapne, we have some of the most inspirational leaders who have joined us in ensuring that we, the youth, are aware of our ray of hope and are able to find opportunities in this sea of challenges. And I would like to start by introducing our very first panelist today, Mr. Amit Kumar. Hi, Amit. Amit is the head of inclusive growth at UNDP India. He has over 21 years of experience working with national and international development organizations, fostering sustainable economic development. He has designed and led multiple bilateral and multilateral projects in India, and especially is passionate about youth and youth career guidance and opportunities. Welcome, Amit.
thank you, Richa. I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
On our panel, the next panelist we have is a very dynamic leader who has 21 years of experience on actualizing rights of children. But I think she will be joining us in a while, so I will be introducing her in a bit. Now we have one of the most inspirational women entrepreneurs I have met, founder of Craftisan Foundation, with over 14 years of experience spanning corporate development and education sectors. We have with us Mayura Balasubramanian. Mayura is spearheading the movement of handicrafts and handmade in India through her organization and is driven to establish group enterprises for women and people with disabilities. Welcome, Mayura.
Thank you, Richa. That was a very warm introduction.
Thank you. Our next panelist today is Aparna Bijapurkar. Aparna is the principal at Boston Consultancy Group and has extensively worked on topics related to youth, including education, skilling, and the future of jobs, with both central and state governments in India, as well as non-profits and multilateral agencies. Aparna is passionate about agriculture-related opportunities for rural youth in India. Welcome, Aparna.
Thank you, Richa, for the welcome, and it's really a privilege to be here today.
Thank you. I think we have Nidhi with us. So Nidhi is with us. She is a dynamic leader. She has worked on grassroots level and is now working as the director of HCL Foundation. Nidhi, welcome. She's a leader not just
Hello,
in the
everyone.
corporate. Hi, Nidhi. She's a leader not just in the corporate social responsibility space, but really for all of us youth. Nidhi, you have dedicated your life to service and have worked at the grassroots level for so many years. You inspire us like no other. Welcome.
Thank you so much for such a kind introduction. I think those are too many words. Everybody here seems to be, I think, doing absolutely great work to humanity. Such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting.
Thank you, Nidhi. And our final panelist of the day has paved the way for youth entrepreneurship in India. For over 20 years, he has shaped the development space with his bold ideas and work in education. Madan is an inspiration for establishing collaborations and seeding possibilities. Founder of Head Held High, Game, One Bridge, and I'm sure many other organizations doing path-breaking work. We have Madan Padki. Welcome, Madan.
Thank you, Richa, and wishing everyone a wonderfully happy International Youth Day. Actually, every day should be a youth day, is a youth day. So delighted to be here.
That's correct. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to invite all of you to our panel today. And to quickly kickstart today's discussion, I would like to invite Amit from UNDP. Amit, you have extensively worked in the field of career guidance and counseling. What is the relevance of career guidance for youth today, especially in the context of COVID-19?
Thanks, Richa, for that question. But before answering specifically your question, I think on my behalf, definitely I join you and Madan wishing everybody a World Youth Day. And as Madan said, that not every day, I think for a country like India, where youth constitute a major demographic populations, definitely it's the days, year, and decade is basically where we need to channelize the energy of youth so that we have a bright and beautiful future ahead. So on that note, I think your questions basically has two parts. One is that's the COVID context, and second is, of course, the relevance of career guidance and counseling for youth. And I'll start picking, or maybe responding first, picking from the COVID context, because even before coming live, we were just in the back room, we were chatting about that's how long we have been stuck at home because of the impact of COVID on our lives. And with each passing day, what's happening is that COVID started as a health crisis, but it's turning into, or it has already turned into, a huge humanitarian crisis. And as far as away we are from, let's say, a kind of getting the vaccine and others, we don't know its full implications yet, how it is going to fan out. And what we are seeing maybe is still the tip of the iceberg. And so if we look into this kind of situations, definitely all of us are affected. You are affected, I am affected, and all the people who are joining, everybody has been affected in one or other way. But like with every crisis, whether it is a man-made or natural disaster, the effect of any crisis is much more on marginalized section of the society, on the poor people, and youth and women specifically are more vulnerable to and more at risk of all of these disruptions, which is caused in our normal day-to-day life. So if you look from this angle, then definitely, and I put, of course, I'm no more a youth, but if I would be a youth, then definitely what I'm observing in front of me. And some of the key factors or key area which I look at it. So what I observed that since last 4-5 months, the whole education system is almost kind of completely disrupted. Whether it is an like formal educational system, your skilling education systems, it's quite a bit completely disrupted. On the economy side, we are in a kind of deep recession already, and we don't know what would be its long-term impact on different sectors, where the job opportunity is going to be. And even if I am not someone who is looking for a job, but if I am someone who is want to become an entrepreneur like Mayura here, then I don't know in which sector or where the opportunity could really lie. And in these two kind of pieces, what we also observed specifically in the last 3-4 months, that the need for digital leapfrogging. And if you tick all these 3 boxes, then what do we observe? What do we really, and specifically from the youth, you said in your opening remark कि बहुत सारे लोग जो हैं हमारे छोटे शहरों से ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे कि इतनी सुविधाएं हमारे पास हैं उनके पास शायद नहीं है, उनको इतनी एक्सेस की हो जो हम बहुत कुछ टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड लेते हैं, उनके पास नहीं है. सो इस सब सिचुएशन में जहाँ पे कि इंफॉर्मेशन की एक तरह से लेट्स से कि डिजिटल डिवाइड जो बहुत ज्यादा ऑलरेडी था, or the importance of digital has really highlighted. So in this case, if I am a youth, I don't know what I should be doing, what kind of a career path I should be taking in terms of the formal educations, whether I need to go for a vocational skill set, then which particular area which I should choose where I could really land up a job and same applies for the entrepreneurship kind of things. And that's really, I think, if there ever is a need for career guidance and its relevance, then it is definitely today. And this is not to say the career guidance as a kind of concept is not relevant per se in the normal times, because when we were growing up, and specifically I'm not counting you, you are pretty young and you are in the whole internet generation. But when at least we were growing up, we didn't have too much of information, and you were always guided by the stereotype kind of things. Ki, okay, if you are maths में अच्छे हैं तो engineering कर लेंगे, अगर आप कॉमर्स में अच्छे हैं तो सीए बन जाएंगे, बायोलॉजी में अच्छे हैं डॉक्टर बन जाएंगे. सो अपॉर्चुनिटीज आप बहुत एक तरह से बहुत ही सेट पैटर्न पे चलती थी, जो कि बहुत ज्यादा गाइडेड होती थी कि आपके पेरेंट्स का क्या एडवाइस है, आपके जो बड़े भाई हैं, बड़ी सिस्टर हैं, उनका क्या एडवाइस है. सो यू डोंट हैव दैट काइंड ऑफ ए प्रोफेशनल एडवाइस एंड गाइडेंस अवेलेबल. And that's why UNDP, as a part of its previous programs, where we have been working in this space and acting as a torchbearer of bringing this whole career guidance and counseling as a part of our program in Disha, which was supported by IKEA Foundations, and we ran that program for 4-5 years, where we specifically focused on 2 or 3 things. एक तो जो 10 से 12 तक के जो बच्चे हैं, बच्चियां हैं, वो दिशा का फोकस में बहुत ज्यादा लड़कियों पे था, लेकिन चूंकि हम सरकारी स्कूलों के साथ ज्यादा फोकस करते हुए काम कर रहे थे, तो डेफिनेटली द इंटरवेंशंस रीच्ड आउट टू बोथ बॉयज एंड गर्ल्स. एंड देयर द फोकस वाज दैट if we can really create a capacity through career guidance is just one piece, what we are discussing today, and complemented by the whole assessment, complemented by the self-discovery, then you have the personal counseling available, and combine that with the exposure to the world of work through internship and apprenticeship opportunity. Then that really creates a kind of platform where someone really becomes or develops the capacity or capability to make an informed decision. And when we are able to put somebody in that position, then definitely I think more than half the battle is won. So in this context, Disha's focus in UNDP's focus as a part of the Disha program and others, which definitely appreciated by the states where we have been working in Delhi, Karnataka, and also taken up by UNICEF in a large way in trying to take that whole online things in many other states. So I think career guidance relevance has always been there. Along combine that with the 21st century skill set, exposure to the world of work, and in today's time, I think it's much more relevant than ever, and that's why it's very important. That's what we are trying to do today to discuss, but also as a part of UNDP's COVID response, where UNDP is leading the whole socio-economic impact mitigations measures as a part of the UN agencies. So this is one important piece in many things that we are trying to do for youth, for women, and of course we would have the chance later on to discuss all of these. So happy to really partner and join hands with Handel Hai in launching this series, जहाँ पे कि आपने अपने ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स में 2-3 चीजें कही हैं, बट एक आध चीजें जो मैं उसमें ऐड करना चाहूंगा कि हम केवल एक्सपर्ट्स टॉक और केवल वो प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं है, लेकिन इस पूरे हमारे जो इंटरवेंशंस जो हम प्लान कर रहे हैं उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा फोकस हमारा ये भी है कि हम जो इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशंस हैं जहाँ पे कि लघु और मध्यम उद्योग जो एसएमई स्मॉल और मीडियम बिजनेसेस हैं, क्योंकि इस डिसरप्शंस में वो भी बहुत सारी दिक्कतें महसूस कर रहे हैं, स्पेसिफिकली कि जहाँ पे भी अब नौ इंडस्ट्री खुल रही है, लेकिन उनको चाहिए स्किल लोग लेकिन मिल नहीं पा रहे हैं। सो हम ये कोशिश भी करेंगे कि हम क्या डिफरेंट क्लस्टर से जॉब की इंफॉर्मेशन जो अवेलेबल है वो इकट्ठा करके और इस प्लेटफॉर्म के तहत, सच होंगे सपने के तहत कुछ स्पेसिफिक सेक्टर पे या कुछ स्पेसिफिक क्लस्टर्स पे क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, कैसे हम कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं, तो वो भी एक फोकस होगा। सो डेफिनेटली ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ यूएनडीपी, हैप्पी टू बी हियर, happy to join hands with head high and look forward to this whole series where we would have the chance to talk and really do certain things in a much more meaningful way. Thanks, Richa.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you. I think when it comes to Sach Honge Sapne, definitely we will be exploring that more during today's discussion. दो चीजें जो आपने कही अमित, मुझे एज अ यूथ आई थिंक आई रियली रिलेट टू इट। पहली बात तो ये कि ये सिर्फ एक हेल्थ क्राइसिस नहीं है, हम सभी इससे जूझ रहे हैं और बहुत अलग अलग तरीकों से जूझ रहे हैं। और दूसरी बात आपने कही कि बहुत चीजें डिसरप्ट हो रही हैं, बहुत सारे सिस्टम्स डिसरप्ट हो रहे हैं, हमारी लाइफ्स में बहुत सारी चीजें डिसरप्ट हो रही हैं। सो actually just picking up from there and coming to Nidhi. Nidhi, in your experience of working on ground and now with the incredible work that you're doing with HCL Foundation, what do you think are youth's biggest barriers today to being employable and how can they overcome them?
Thank you, Richa, for that question. And I think Amit captured quite well in terms of, the overall, I would say, the paradigm under which, the whole discourse on youth is constructed here. First of all, once again, wishing everyone a very happy International Youth Day. Bharat mein to hum 12th January ko manate hain when as Swami Vivekananda's birthday. और आज का दिन ऐसा होता है कि एटलीस्ट आई पर्सनली आई एम अ बिग फॉलोअर ऑफ हिम, हमेशा याद करते हैं कि हाउ मच ही एक्चुअली गिव दैट इमेज टू द इंडियन यूथ इन दोज टाइम्स. और it's very important, I think, to kind of connect back with roots and how the Indian, nationality plays a very important role. I fully understand that we've gone global and we have this whole construct of the global youth marching towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which is critical. But then our youth is coming, of course, 70% plus is coming from the rural areas. And if you look at even the face of the urban youth today, 50 to 60% is the migrated youth. So it's very critical that we connect और हम समझें कि युवा चाहता क्या है. So a lot of planning is also happening perhaps without their involvement. You will see कि कभी-कभी youth बात चल रही होगी और बहुत सारे लोग उसमें शायद 60 age group के ऊपर होंगे. In this panel, we are all youth. I can see that because even WHO has kind of, they've been deliberating on the definition, and in fact, from 15 to 45 now we are talking up to 60 because it's all about the mindset. It's all about the demographic dividend, which is useful, which is also carrying the youth burden as we say, under 15 and above 60 is the age group, which this whole age group has to, as we say in public health, they're the ones who actually carry the larger, they carry the country on their shoulders or the world on their shoulders. So we're talking about a very important demographic dividend here. And fortunately, India is, one of the big, and that's one of the biggest asset. In terms of hurdles, Richa, I think one big problem is guidance and direction, which the youth is facing. And media has a very big role there, क्योंकि ज़्यादातर जो जानकारी युवा को मिलती है वो कहीं ना कहीं टीवी के माध्यम से या जो भी आज हमारा सोशल मीडिया है वहाँ से मिल रही है. फर्स्ट जनरेशन लर्नर्स हैं, बहुत दिक्कत का सामना करना पड़ता है economic realities are tough. I'm told that just about 47% of the youth across the industry is employable, बाकी employable भी नहीं है. तो जो शिक्षा का जो एक समय जिसकी हम बात करें, जो बचपन से शुरू हो जाती है किसी ना किसी फॉर्म में, और जो हमारा एक फाउंडेशनल ईयर जिसे हम बात करते हैं, ईयर्स हैं, वो कहीं ना कहीं खो जाते हैं, बिकॉज एवरीबडी इज गेटिंग कंडीशनड इनटू सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ एजुकेशन व्हिच मे नॉट बी रेलेवेंट, व्हिच मे नॉट बी एम्प्लॉयबल. In fact, another statistics which I have got from our own team is that out of 28.9 million students who enroll for undergraduate, just about 30%, 25% are actually employable. So just imagine the number of years in terms of human hours which are just going waste. तो अभी जो नई शिक्षा नीति आई, बहुत अच्छा मैं कहूँगी, जिसमें एक बात की गई है, स्किल डेवलपमेंट की बात कही गई है और अर्ली इयर्स में बात की गई है. उसको क्रियान्वित कैसे करेंगे, उसको लागू कैसे करेंगे, will be of course a big game changer. But that's very critical, that let's not run after a similar similar kind of a curriculum where we're talking about conventional subjects. We're not looking at innovation. Let us talk about relevant education right from primary. Why wait so long? Because the creativity of the child can be discovered as early as class 5 or 4. Which doesn't mean that we limit them to certain things, but at least the basket of opportunities has to be available. यहाँ पर एक जो मैं यहाँ पर रुकूंगी, and maybe when you ask me the question again, but something very important which I really want to put in is that it's also important how the youth looks at themselves. If I am a young girl living in a town of India somewhere, what is my aspiration? And who is working with me on my aspiration? ज्यादातर लड़कियों को बड़ा किया जा रहा है कि शादी करनी है, पढ़ाई भी करनी है, there is a marriage market out there, the whole environment in which that young person is growing, and the esteem from where, the self-esteem that she is constructing for herself. And I'm bringing the point she, because 50% of youth is she, and they very much define the future as well as present of this country.
Yes.
So that point of how do I see myself, where will I go from here, is very, very important to be built right from the foundation. Some of us who have actually come, I would say, long way. I've also grown up in a very small city. But then there was somebody, maybe in the form of teachers, maybe in the form of parents, working on our own self, on my self-esteem, that you can become something, that is very, very important, and which cannot happen through hardware trainings. That can only happen through soft skill development and the kind of environment which the young person is living. And that has to be washed very carefully if we really want to build the character of a country, I would say. Let me stop here, and when you come back to me, maybe we'll take the discourse ahead.
Yes, no, thank you so much. I think आपने बहुत सारी important चीज़ों के बारे में बात करी है. Foundational learning. How do youth really look at themselves and also their self-esteem? कि हम अपना sense of worth, अपना potential किस तरीके से देख पा रहे हैं, वो भी एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है. So thank you for highlighting those things. Coming from self-esteem to now self-reliance, and my next question is to you, Mayura. There is this newfound motivation in India to becoming Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, and your work really embodies that. So in your experience of working around self-employment, how can young people become Atmanirbhar during these times?
Yeah, thanks, Richa. So, that's actually the question of the moment, isn't it? I mean, self-employment has never been more critical. The need has never been stronger than it is today. You look at so many sectors, particularly sectors where trade-related skills have, can be used, which have been affected so badly. Right? You talk about retail, hospitality, construction, you name it, or transport, right? Being Uber, Ola drivers was something that would keep a lot of youth skilled and engaged. There are so many trade related sectors that have stalled now, And therefore, looking at self-employment opportunities has to go beyond just training. And I think that's what everybody else has touched upon. And I think it needs to be aided self-employment. You need to provide support in terms of either marketing, capacity building, business planning, and definitely capital. Whether it's a loan, whether it's grant funding, whether it's part funding of equipment, but there needs to be some sort of support. And I think that's what we have seen in our work. So we work on two models. We do work on self-employment, but we work a lot on group enterprise model as well. And what we've seen is, there earlier with some of our group enterprises, there would be some fluctuation, right, in terms of numbers. There would be absenteeism to do with various things. It could be festivals, it could be other, personal priorities, migration, etc. But now we have seen that attendance is at an all-time high, because these are communities where, especially the women we work with, many of them are the only breadwinners now for their families. So the group enterprise model has really picked up, and touch wood, the craft sector has been fairly resilient, especially if you've been able to make that transition and move online. So there we have definitely been able to continue supporting all of our groups, who we employ directly through group enterprise. And across the board, I think craft skills are very relevant. And I think this industry, being less capital intensive, is very innovative and can be innovative a lot faster. But when it comes to self-employment, I have seen challenges. We are asking our donors now to give us more support in terms of providing that capital, like I said, right? It's no longer just enough to provide somebody tailoring as a skill. You need to give them that machine. It's no longer enough to say, okay, here is a sanitary pad, go out there and sell these, reusable sanitary pads. You have a local market. How do you go about it? How do you learn about sales and negotiation and, dealing with different buyers? And even building that confidence to say, okay, you need to maybe widen your network, go out and meet different groups of buyers or customers, right? So there's never been a stronger need, I would say, for capacity building, but additional support for self-employment.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing, Meera. That gives us a lot of insight into what's really happening on the ground, और हमारे youth के जो opportunities है self employment को लेकर और crafts industry में, I think हम सभी को कुछ नया सीखने मिला है. Thank you. Continuing the thread of being self-reliant, and also picking up from what Mayura just said about the fact that just imparting the skill is not enough. A lot of knowledge, a lot of systemic level changes need to happen. So with that thought, Aparna, I'm coming to you. There have been a number of policy announcements over the last few months related to India's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and especially in the context of COVID-19. So according to you, what should young people know about these policies, and how will they impact us youth?
Yeah. Thanks, Richa. And, I think the advantage of going after some of the other panelists is that you have the opportunity to wholeheartedly agree, I think, with what's been said. So I think, while it is undoubtedly true, I think that the last few months have been extremely challenging. And I think a disproportionate burden of that in many ways, has fallen on the youth, either because, education has gone online, the classroom environment is changing, there's disruption. Or I think to Mayura's point, youth tend to work in sectors like retail, hospitality, tourism, personal services, much of which has actually been, disrupted during this time. So I think, it has been an extremely challenging time. But I do feel hopeful and optimistic, right? I think on a few counts. And to your question of, there have been a number of policy announcements, what are they and what do they mean for young people? I won't touch on this one a lot, but I think, the new education policy, as Nidhi was saying as well, will, I think, bring a change, right? Both in terms of the kinds of skills that young people can acquire, the ways in which they can acquire those skills, whether, in terms of hands-on or practical training, and the flexible pathways to then be able to choose a course that is, more appropriate for you, and be able to also change that course as you go along. But I think a lot, we need to see how that will be implemented. And that will not just impact young people today, but I think generations. But I think coming to something that is, more, I think, relevant here and now, let's say in the next few years, then, and I'm very happy to hear that there are many young people from, rural areas on this call, because I have of late also been doing a lot of work in the agriculture space. So if you look at the Atmanirbhar Bharat package, right, I think, while opportunities like tourism, hospitality, etc., will slow down and may take a few years to, I think, recover, what is very clear is that there will be new opportunities that are emerging. I think both in terms of sectors and, agriculture and allied services, healthcare, MSME are big sectors where new opportunities will emerge for young people. But I think also in terms of the kinds of opportunities, right? Not all will be, jobs. Many will be entrepreneurship and mass entrepreneurship. Some will be gig work. And if we, take one specific area, right? I mean, let's look at agriculture, given, who we have on the call. I hope this might be useful to many of our young people here. What the Atmanirbhar Bharat announcements have done is it has basically liberalized the agriculture sector. Right, in 1991, the rest of the economy was liberalized, and I would say that now, the agriculture sector has been opened up, and I think, there is just going to be significantly more opportunity and investment, not just related to farming. I mean, you talk to young people and they say, my father is a farmer, I don't want to do farming, I want to do anything else, right? But they also express a need to want to stay closer to home, right? And what you will see now is investment and opportunity in spaces like warehousing, storage, go downs, trucks, coal trucks. There will be a need, digital platforms will come in agriculture. Related to that, there will need to be physical service points, because at the end of the day, there is a mango or a banana that needs to be delivered, graded, sorted. So there will be a whole new set of these kinds of investments as a result of either the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund that was announced, or the greater opportunity for the private sector. And I think with each of these investments will come jobs, right? I mean, these are job creating opportunities that will require managers to be able to run these warehouses. It will require staff to be able to do the grading and sorting. It will require scientists. It will require a whole spectrum, right? And I think even if you think about collectives, right, in agriculture, there's a new policy around farmer producer organizations, right, which is groups of thousands of farmers that come together, and every FPO needs a CEO, right? And where do these CEOs come from? They have to come from the local community, right? Every FPO will need a manager that does marketing, that does procurement of inputs, seeds, all of that. Every FPO will need, an accountant to be able to manage the finances. So these are the kinds of new opportunities that will come up in the agriculture space. And I think will give young people the kinds of experiences that they want, while hopefully being able to also keep them closer to home, in areas that they would like to explore, right? I think the last thing that I'll say though is it's, I think many young people on this call will be saying, sure, there are all of these opportunities, but, how do I access them, right? Will I get a job? Do I have to set up my own business? And I think that's where, the gap that we have seen historically is, right? Is in terms of, guidance to young people, access to information, don't know how to go about it. And, initiatives like the one that, Head Held High is now setting up, I really hope will be able to bridge that gap and also focus on some of these newer emerging spaces where there will be bigger need. So I think that's, I'm optimistic, and I really hope that, collectively we will be able to create all of these millions of opportunities, not just in big cities, but across the country.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aparna. I think in these tough times, your words and your thoughts and just the way you're being optimistic about what's happening in India, and I'm sure it will, is really inspiring for me and a lot of youth on this call today. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think some of the really interesting things you spoke about was, gig economy and a lot of logistics and other industries coming up, और उन सब में इतनी सारी opportunities होंगी. I'm really happy and I'm smiling because ये सभी topics हमने सच होंगे सपने में cover करने की कोशिश करी है हमारी web series में. तो I hope कि हमारे youth जो जुड़े हुए हैं वो आगे जब हमारी series और episodes देखेंगे तो इन सभी चीजों के बारे में और जान पाएंगे. I think one thing you spoke about was that a lot of leadership is required when all of these opportunities come up. बहुत सारा entrepreneurship required होगा, बहुत सारे collectives required होंगे इन सभी चीज़ों को reality में लाने के लिए. So I'm sure, Madan, my question is now to you. Madan, your journey is a testament that entrepreneurship and youth really go hand in hand. And so, just in the context of that, what are some opportunities available for youth to explore entrepreneurship currently?
Sure, Richa. It's been a fascinating conversation. I couldn't agree with Aparna more that, I think I need now more IEDX from shaking my head vigorously saying, yes, that is right, and stuff like that. So, I'm no longer a youth. I get neck pains and all that stuff. But so my thought, if I reflect on my own journey and what I have learned by interacting with a variety of youth from across the country, almost on a daily basis, is my mind always keeps going back to this movie that I have watched maybe over 100 times. When my son was 2 years old, he used to love this movie, and breakfast, lunch, dinner, he used to say, show this movie. And this movie, for those of you who might have seen it, and both for those of you who have not seen it, please watch it. It's called Kung Fu Panda. Right? It's about this panda who's working in his father's kitchen, but suddenly is told that you're the new dragon warrior. Right? And he says, what, me? Who? Right? And the story is all about the transformation of panda into the dragon warrior. Every time I watch the movie, I've had a new meaning that I found. And my belief with the work that we've done at Head Held High, where we've seen lots of pandas, ordinary youth from across the country, in the deepest of rural, largely girls from very poor families, hardly been to school, but I've seen the transformation of these pandas into dragon warriors. Right. In my previous life, I built a company called Meritrack, which started out as India's first skills assessment entity. So all you youth there, we used to give tests, and we used to tell you if you pass, you're employable. If you fail, you're not employable. And I think, in my experience later on, that is such a wrong way of looking at things. Of course, employability has a space, but for a particular sector. But it does not mean that you are not employable. It only means you are not employable for a particular job. Right? What I have come to believe is that there is a dragon warrior in each and every one of you. You have unlimited potential. Right? You just need to start believing. I think Atmanirbhar ke pehle Atmavishwas aata hai. If you can say, yes, I am capable, I can believe in my dreams, and I will do whatever it takes to achieve. Nidhi was talking about Swami Vivekananda ji, and he says, arise, awake, and stop not till your goal is reached. If you believe and say, come what may, I will do this, all your sapnes will become such. Right? And so my lesson in this, and I'm very inspired again by what Dr. Kalam, one of my favorite people, said. He said, sapne or dreams is not something that you get when you're sleeping, but a dream is something that won't let you sleep. Right? So be it entrepreneurship, be it leadership, be it your own potential, it just needs three ingredients. One, you need to start believing in yourself. Yeah. Right? You need to get up every morning and say, let me see who I can become today. Right? And start believing, saying that I'm the best. I have nothing that is incomplete in me. Second, you need to start dreaming, and dreaming big. Right? It could be about anything. You may want to become an entrepreneur like Mayura. You may want to become a wonderful consultant like Aparna. You may want to become a terrific, inspiring entrepreneur like Richa, right? Or you may want to become bald like me. It doesn't matter, right? But start dreaming. And third, you got to put efforts. Nothing happens because you dream in your sleep. Everything happens because you dare to complete those dreams, right? And I believe that every cloud out there, COVID is a huge dark cloud, but it has got several silver linings. If you search hard, And if we work hard enough, every crisis is an opportunity. And I can see, especially in rural, as everybody is talking about rural supply chains, Aparna was talking about opportunities, agriculture, we are talking about about opportunities in the technology space, in the gig economy, in the e-commerce space. There are opportunities everywhere. It is just that you got to see it and go after them. And I think that, especially when you're transformed, when you have woken up, it'll be a pity if each of you go and seek a job. You have to be job creators, right? Can you go and dream to say, I won't stand in a queue with my resume, but I will create 100 jobs? How will that happen? Of course, all of us need to come together. This is what is called the ecosystem, right? UNDP, HCL Foundation, BCG, entrepreneurs like Mayura, Headed High. If you all come together and create a platform, a scaffolding, a support system for you to pursue your dreams, I believe that each of you can become an entrepreneur, a job creator, and more importantly, each and every one can be a change maker, right? Where you make a positive contribution to your society. And that's my dream. And I've seen this play out over and over again. I completely believe in it. And I really hope that you can take this belief a little bit into each of your thinking as this conversation progresses.
Yes, thank you so much, Madan. I think just everything that you said resonated with me a lot, and it really uplifted me. और मुझे बहुत विश्वास है कि हमारे यूथ जो आज हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं उनके पास भी आज बहुत सारा आत्मविश्वास बढ़ा है, और हम therefore आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर चल पाएंगे. Thank you so much for that, Madan.
Thank you.
It's interesting that you speak about, how the ecosystem needs to come together to support the youth and to really nurture our own self-beliefs. I think just following up on that and trying to deep dive into what each one of us shared right now. And my question is to you now, Amit. What are the ecosystem enablers that are in place where youth can really access these skills and information to explore employability and entrepreneurship?
Okay, so I think before I answer that questions, a few points, and that's largely goes into the direction of can we move towards creating an enabling ecosystem? I think that's what we want to discuss. And the point, what Aparna was saying with reference to the whole farmer produce organizations, the opportunities that would be emerging out of the whole push on rural economy, and specifically the farm-based economy. Because the jobs is just one small piece into the whole larger puzzle that all of us have to solve together, is to create economic opportunity for youth, and specifically youth from the rural populations, and that includes equal focus on girls and women, because as Nidhi was saying, 50% constitutes she, लेकिन अगर हम overall entrepreneurship or employment में देखें, still I think the share is pretty, I think India is doing very bad on job front. We are somewhere around 23 or 22%, and over the last 5 years, we are just even diving down on that front. On the entrepreneurship space also, our proportion of women into the entrepreneurship space is less than 14%. So UNDP as such, as part of its past programs, has already been trying to do many of the things. And I would just take 1 minute to really talk about, for example, when Aparna was saying, कि अगर 10,000 FPO नए बनने हैं, तो उसके लिए आप CEO चाहिए, उसके लिए आपको मैनेजर चाहिए, और मैनेजर ऐसे चाहिए जो कि हम और आप जाके वहां पे नहीं, बट बेसिकली लोकल मैनेजर्स चाहिए. तो उसके as part of its previous program, UNDP has been focusing on creating specific curriculum, specific role, which enables these kind of things. So creating specifically the women sourcing manager kind of curriculum, training rural and local populations so that they can really be available and can walk into that local FPO, artisan collectives and other stuff. Similarly, जैसे मयूरा बात कर रही थी कि artisanal sectors में कि पहले भी digital kind of footprint was increasing, but with the whole COVID, suddenly अगर आपको really access करना है और अपने आप को not only sustain करना है, but अगर grow भी करना है, then you need to be there. But all of us, and specifically the artisans who are working on this and the self-help groups and others, they don't have that kind of capacity. So our focus in the past has also been that's how really you create the capacity on the ground so that they can really access, and that has been the push as part of our overall the response that we are trying to do. And UNDP, I think you would be aware, और बाकी सबके लिए बता दूं कि हमारे जो काम करने का है एक लक्ष्य जो बहुत है कि हम किसी को पीछे नहीं छोड़े. So leave no one behind is the agenda on which UNDP is working. Now coming mainly to your questions, if you look into the ecosystem front, then definitely there are many things being done by many players and actors. So whether you look it from the government side, and if you just try to track the whole journey of government initiative and focus, and starting, let's say, first to start with the skilling side, 7-8 साल पहले जो सिचुएशन थी और जो आज की सिचुएशन है, काफी बदलाव आया है. भारत सरकार की तरफ से, राज्य सरकार की तरफ से आपको नए डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ स्किलिंग प्रोग्राम तो एक है, बट स्किलिंग प्रोग्राम के अलावा रियली पुटिंग अप न्यूअर इंस्टीट्यूशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, जैसे सेक्टर स्किल काउंसिल के एग्जांपल की बात कर रहा हूं मैं. The idea जो employability का issue आता है, and the point which Nidhi raised and Madan basically very rightly said, it's not that कि I am not employable, but I may not be employable for a job with HCL Foundations for a particular role, or for UNDP, or for on entrepreneurs. मेरी skill set और मेरी जरूरतें और मेरी inspirations और aspirations कहीं और हैं. So एक तो सरकार की तरफ से काफी सारे institutional infrastructure along with the schemes are being put in place. And these schemes and these institutional infrastructure is now moving just beyond the metro. So it is in every district. If you look into that, the concept of district skill counseling, putting up, that's how you can have really a kind of counseling center. Even recently, just last week, we were having a conversation with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. वहाँ बात ये चल रही है कि जो हम मुद्दा आज डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि सबसे पहले कि aspirations को मैच करने, just I need to know what I really, my desires, my intents, what my dreams are, and how the supporting system can really match that one. So उस सब मुद्दे को देखते हुए कि डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे कैसे काउंसलिंग सेंटर्स स्थापित किए जाएं, आप जो स्किलिंग है आपका या एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप है कि उसको आप कैसे move it from the metros to these rural areas, to the tier 2, tier 3. So काफी कुछ सरकार की तरफ से हो रहा है, काफी कुछ जो सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, जो कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं, अगर आप निधि is here representing HCL Foundations, and if you look into the work that's also being done by many of the corporate foundations and others, there is quite a bit of focus on creating opportunities and trying to bridge this gap. क्योंकि India जैसी country में, I think even in today's time, if you look, it is not that opportunities. I completely agree with Aparna's note. It is not even in today's time that opportunities are not there. What really lacks is how do we create a pathway between opportunities and someone who is looking to tap that opportunities. I need to be informed, and that was also one of the key pieces when we started working on these almost 5 years ago on the whole career guidance, on creating access to employment and entrepreneurship. That was one of the key roadblock and bottleneck identified. So definitely there are many things that's happening from organizations like actually foundations, all the CSOs and others. You have government infrastructure, you have the corporate, and definitely all the development agency. What we really still missing, in my view, is someone who is playing that role of a floater into that local ecosystem, because talk about an enabling ecosystem, we talk about collaborations, but somebody who is really playing that role of a floater and connecting the different dots, that's something I think is still missing, and where all of us really need to work towards. And combined with all these physical and informational infrastructure, what is very good thing about today's time is you have so much you can cover digitally. And with the increasing penetration of web presence, the smartphones penetration on youth, and even if you the uses of social media and others, I think this creates a channel which we didn't have almost 10 years before. That's we could really reach out to so many people and really talk directly and interact with sitting everybody. So that's another, I think, enabler which exists with us. And it depends on us, how do we really take the best out of this and try to fill in that gap of what I love to call it, that who connects the dot, because that's because there are so many dots at times. Youth, it also confusing that's which dot would be the best suited for her or him. So someone who is connecting and then drawing that pathway, that's where I think still we need to work. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. I think that is very insightful. And thank you for also highlighting the bright spots, the things that are working out when it comes to youth opportunities and employability. I think हम सभी को ये सुनने की बहुत ज़रूरत है. And thank you for bringing up the fact that बहुत सारे enablers already काम कर रहे हैं. जैसे आपने district skill council के बारे में बात करी, sector skill councils के बारे में बात करी, और अलग अलग NGOs, अलग अलग CSRs जो इस पे काम कर रहे हैं. Just picking up the thread from there and coming to Nidhi, Amit spoke about how CSRs are so pivotal in this whole entire movement. What according to you is the role of CSRs in nation building and youth focused programs currently in the times of COVID?
So, Richa, I would say that, of course, the corporate social responsibility agenda is nothing else will work without having youth on agenda. CSR will also not work. I mean, it's very obvious. And it's also preparedness towards transition into youth. So even if there are corporates who are working, of course, HCL Foundation and HCL, we are a broad-based foundation and we work with a life cycle approach where I would say, more than 1/4 of our program is youth-centric and youth-focused. Also, pre-youth, how do we prepare even children to transition into youth is also something very critical. And that is also something where, some of the corporates who just would want to remain focused, maybe working with very younger population, can also look at. Also we've been talking about employability and the relevance and preparing youth for more than one kind of job, or to become an entrepreneur is also a kind of a job, but then how do they really get integrated into the larger, or be mainstream into the larger society? And a couple of I would say, very clear issues on which all of us need to be working together, be it corporates, be it NGOs, and be it government sector. And there are 4-5 areas which I always see as very, very central. Whenever we think about youth and young people, we always think, okay, employment and youth, they have to become a part of the economy and straight away start producing results, and the whole burden is on them and they have to carry us all. But then there are fundamental issues which really need to be dealt with, and time and again, these are things. One very important aspect which we must be talking to young people is about family well-being, family planning, uh, access to contraception, because total fertility rate is something which we have to achieve, a desired total fertility rate. We are actually, this year COVID crisis, I mean, we saw how the family planning services were not seen as the essential services, and somewhere there was a break, and that might result in again a population growth which we really can't afford. There is no way that we can afford now more than what we have. And that will come in the way of our progress, and youth will have to take that responsibility, young people will have to take that responsibility, and that has to happen both in rural areas, in urban areas, with inside the urban slums, inside the rural pockets, and so on. The second big aspect is de-addiction. I think a whole lot of youth. So whenever, be it as NGOs, CSR, government, when we think about programs, I think they really need to take shape of campaigns and projects which are targeted. You go into slums, you go into communities, you go into elite communities, you go into disadvantaged sections, you will find addiction of one or the other form. And that's where the country's youth is getting crippled. Why is that happening? Of course, there's little work on self-esteem in the younger ages. Of course, there is no awareness amongst them that what is good for me, what is bad for me. They just follow whatever is happening. And we really need to have targeted interventions once again on de-addiction of all forms. I mean, today morning also I was having discussion with another partner where they were reporting that, you know, forget about coming to the age of 15, 11, 12. You know, there is all form of addiction in the remote rural areas also, without, because they're just ignorant, they're just falling into various kinds of be it tobacco, alcohol, different forms of drugs and so on. And we really need to act very fast on that. And if corporates can also have some targeted interventions, put their money into it, would be great. Government should do that. We should all be coming together. I think the third big thing is sports, you know, where we have a huge opportunity. I know as Excel Foundation, we invest a lot, and that is one mechanism that we see to actually inculcate that whole feeling of self-esteem or self-image, and keeping them away from negative habits. Channelizing, let's not see sports only as, you know, Olympic medals. Let's see sports as a culture in this country. And युवा को यदि वो मौका मिलता है, वो मैं कहती हूँ कि छोटी छोटी चीजें भी हमने करके देखी हैं, इतना बदलाव आता है और वो हमें करने की जरूरत है. And I know corporates get attracted to it. Let's make that a culture. You know, imagine so many girls playing hockey and kabaddi and so on. I mean, it's such a thriller, you know, to engage them into such positive work, which should happen. I mean, I remember from my international days when I used to travel across the world. I mean, I can never forget a sight when I landed in Senegal and I was traveling into rural area. रोड के साइड में आपको गर्ल्स एंड बॉयज जॉग करते हुए दिखेंगे, कहीं पे आपको सॉकर खेलते हुए दिखेंगे. कंट्री लाइक सेनेगल, which otherwise is very poor on socio-demographic indicators, but they end up giving good teams to the world. How does that happen? So that's something that should become an agenda at the panchayat level, not only at the level of urban में आके suddenly sports की बात होती है, rural में क्यों नहीं होती? Why can't every panchayat house have one sports ground? And another important aspect is involvement of youth in climate action. बहुत ज़रूरी है. हम suddenly बात करते हैं कि environment. So we have this responsibility of, you know, preparing environment aware youth, which can work and act. Another thing is also the image of the youth. We always imagine this young person working in retail industry. We also support all those courses, and or you know, but क्यों हम एक पढ़ा लिखा किसान जिसके पास अपना कौशल है, अपनी खेती को बेहतर करने का, या इंडिजिनस जो भी ट्रेड हैं, आर्टिजन्स हो सकते हैं, वो क्यों हम वो इमेज उसको नहीं दे पा रहे हैं? क्यों हम हर एक जो बात हो रही है, जो भी शिक्षा से बात हो रही है, या जो भी कौशल से बात हो रही है, वो ये बात हो रही है कि आपको शहर जाना है, शहर जाके काम करना है, गांवों को जोड़ना होगा. You know, this whole thing about Atmanirbhar also has a foundation in rural India, in the indigenous nature of this country. एजुकेशन आए, शिक्षा आए, पढ़ाई आए, टेक्नोलॉजी आए, सब कुछ आए, लेकिन वो इमेज जो है उसकी ऐसा नहीं हो कि वो सडनली बदल जा रही है युवा की और वो अपने पुराने काम को करना ही नहीं चाहती या चाहता. That I think has to be completely demystified, and that change has to happen. And that's when we will see a lot of strength, where even the CSR programs which are being designed, they really need to take that into account. Let's reach out to them where they are and provide them the kind of skill that they need. And I will only stop with the last point, which of course we are working with you as well, headed high the program, is the 21st century skills. The skill of creativity and collaboration and technology and time management and negotiation, because those are critical, and that really need to be embedded with various trades, which make them employable into not one, not two, but a multifaceted a person who's youthful, who's young, who's interested in herself, her own personal development, as well as has a very, very high self-esteem. And we've already spoken about dreams, has dreams, because
Yeah.
another big thing which is catching our young people, unfortunately, is depression. Because of lack of vision, like lack of dreams, lack of aspirations. And how do we really keep them away from that depression is, of course, a responsibility which all of us need to work together, not only the corporate sector, but each one of
Yes.
us who's helping them transition.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Nidhi, for that. I think there were a lot of things जिनके बारे में आपने बात करी जो हमारी यूथ के लिए बहुत रेलिवेंट है. I think एक चीज जो मुझे बहुत स्ट्राइक करी जो आपने कहा, इट्स अबाउट एजेंसी, कि हम कैसे स्पोर्ट्स या अलग अलग प्रोग्राम्स या 21st सेंचुरी स्किलिंग के द्वारा हर यूथ और प्री यूथ जो यूथ में ट्रांजिशन कर रहे हैं बच्चे और एडोलेसेंट्स, उनको हम कैसे एम्पावर कर सकते हैं या एक एनेबलिंग एनवायरनमेंट बना सकते हैं वेयर दे ऑलरेडी आर, जहां हम ऑलरेडी हैं. As an entrepreneur who is working on social emotional learning myself, I really resonate with the fact that youth have to be reached where they are, and they have to be listened to. Unke ecosystem में उनका say और उनके thoughts important होने चाहिए. Um, I think just picking up from there, and my question is to you now, Aparna. We hear a lot about, and also just what Nidhi mentioned right now, about nothing about us without us. It's a quote that we hear all the time, and it's very relevant, especially today on International Youth Day. According to you, how can young people really become stakeholders in the youth policy making space? And how can really what is about us be with us?
Yeah, no, I think that's that's such a good question, and we discuss that a lot, and I feel I think youth are not just stakeholders, right? And I think they are custodians, and like you said, agents of change, right? I mean, they are the custodians, I think, of policy that is of youth, related to youth. And I used to talk to Madan about this, and he shaped my views a lot. I would say that we need to create this ecosystem, this enabling environment. We need to provide opportunities. And Madan said, just get out of the way, and young people will create the space themselves, right?
Yes.
And I really, really think, I mean, that resonated with me so much. And I said, oh gosh, like why did we not talk like that? Why didn't we realize that? And I think, taking from just that idea, right, which is how can young people create the space for themselves, and where will they create the space for themselves? I think, it sounds simple, but I think the first thing that's important is, you have to just keep your eyes and ears open and be a little bit more aware and informed, right? I mean, I think, policy happens around us. It's not a big thing that happens at a distance, but it happens in your neighborhood kind of panchayat, that happens, with your MLA, it happens, in your building society. I mean, policy, it happens in university. I think it happens, around us, right? So I think just being a little bit more aware, informed, and open to it, right? That's non-negotiable. I think, the second is different individuals have different, I think, skill sets and desires, right, about how they would like to participate and how they would like to contribute. And I think there's a spectrum of how, youth can become custodians of change, right? And there's no right answer. I think at one end of the spectrum is, expressing your views. I think, signing petitions as small as that, participating in consultations. Like, I don't know how many young people on this call know that the Ministry of Youth in January had an open consultation around the new youth policy. Right. So, I mean, just being able to participate in that, and government has to do that, right? They have to consult, they have to release policy draft. So I think, do you want to, how do you contribute? How do you participate? And they have to read every response, right? I mean, so I think that's one end of the spectrum. I think the other is that there are many organizations that, already have maybe a seat at the table, right? I think there are institutions that, over the years have built that space for themselves, and they're youth-focused institutions. They are institutions by young people. And, I think how do youth kind of participate more, whether it's, UNDP and the UN Volunteers Program, for example, right? How do you use vehicles like that to be able to first get that seat at the table and then make a space for yourself, right? So I think that's another way that's further along. And I think then there are some young people who truly are agents of change, and they have this desire and this passion, and they will go out there in their neighborhoods, in their communities, find problems, solve them, create evidence bases, and then there's that kind as well, right? So I think you can pick any path that suits you. I don't think there's a right answer. And I think all of these paths will eventually lead to your ability to impact and influence kind of your own policy future to many, many extents.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. And I think I loved the way you spoke about how अगर youth अपनी आवाज government तक पहुंचाएंगे तो government को सुनना पड़ेगा. If we are having consultations and youth are putting up their opinions and views, तो government को उसको incorporate और सुनना पड़ेगा. And I think वो बहुत जरूरी बात है जो हम youth को कभी या कम बताई जाती है स्कूलों में और हमारे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में. और दूसरी बात ये कि पॉलिसी इज नॉट जस्ट व्हाट्स हैपनिंग एट अ सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट लेवल. पॉलिसी हर जगह है, हमारे स्कूल्स में, हमारे कॉलेजेस में, हमारे स्टूडेंट काउंसिल्स में, और उसमें हम कैसे अपनी आवाज और आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं. आई थिंक दैट इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टेक अवे दैट आई एम टेकिंग अवे. I think coming to Madan again and just picking up from there, Madan, what are some skills that rural youth need to be developing at this time to make the most of the challenges that we are facing? What can we do?
So in this model, which as we were talking about the ecosystem, so essentially once youth, all of you begin to dream, you have to start discovering the world outside. So I would say curiosity, figure out information, right? What does it mean to be a botanist? What does it mean to be a microbiologist? Whatever, right? So go figure out ways in which you can start getting information. So the Sach Honge Sapne series is one such platform where we want to provide a lot of structured information to you. But you have to seek it. Information won't come to you, right? Second, once you've got exposed to a range of information, you have to decide what to do with your life, right? You want to be an entrepreneur, and this is not a one-time decision. This is a decision that you keep revisiting every now and then, but you have to decide, right? Once you decide, and the decision can be with your parents, with your friends, can be with a mentor, and I believe that mentoring is going to be a big thing that we as an ecosystem group of people can help provide to youth, right? Third is that once you decide, you got to start developing skills for that. Now, there are certain skills that are common across the 21st century skills that Nidhi was talking about. It could be domain-specific skills, functional skills. Yeah. Now, especially with the online world, you will find resources to do any sort of learning available online if you seek for it. If you search for it. Once you develop these skills, then you got to figure out how do you design your future, right? So which program do I need to go? Where do I need to apply for a loan? Which apprenticeship do I need to apply? Which internship will give me the right launch pad? If you want to do a startup, which incubator do I need to? How do you design to make this happen? So if you go through these steps of discover, decide, develop, and design, then you'll start to dream again. Once you reach the particular level, you'll say, okay, now next what, right? So I think in your minds, if you can structurally go through this, and our job as all of us who support your journey.
Madan, I think we lost your audio. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, there's some internet connection issues. Okay, so our job as an ecosystem group of actors is to connect the dots. Amit was talking about connecting the dots. So if each of us can play a role with the government, with the corporate, with the private sector, with foundations, with CSR, how do we connect the dots? I'm also a part of a very interesting Connecting the Dots initiative, which of course UNDP is a partner as well. This is an initiative incubated by UNICEF called YUVA. And the idea is, how do we all come together to connect the dots so that we can make your journey easy to live your dreams and to truly become change makers. But I'm saying the last point I want to make is that the control is with you. You have to own it. Please don't depend on anybody. There's no crutch. But all of us have to do what we have to do to make you get onto that journey and starting to dream big.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Madan. I think from dream to design, I think that is essentially what we youth should be looking at. And thank you so much हमें एक structured approach देने के लिए कि अगर हम यहाँ पर हैं और हम सोच रहे हैं कि अपने career को कैसे pursue करें, अपने अंदर के entrepreneur को कैसे pursue करें. I think this is a very very helpful framework. And सच होंगे सपने series में, as you also mentioned, हमें बहुत अच्छे से और डीप डाइव करके एक्सप्लोर करेंगे. सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर शेयरिंग दैट. One thing that you mentioned, Madan, was we have to look for opportunities and we have to be present. और हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि हमें क्या-क्या accessible है. Talking about access, I think when you were talking, I was constantly thinking about so many of us youth are marginalized, and there are a lot of barriers to this access that many of us face many times. And I think Mayura would be the best person to answer this. Mayura, how is self-employment being made more accessible, especially to women who are marginalized and women in general, and also persons with disabilities?
Right. So, I talked about earlier that one has to also provide additional support beyond just the training, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to touch upon first women, and then I'll talk about the disability sector, because that's a marginalized sector that deserves a separate sort of a response. So with women, I'm going to sort of quickly outline maybe some opportunities that I see currently, right? And then maybe how they can go about tapping into some of those opportunities. So if you look at the craft sector itself, there has been a huge surge in online sales. So if you're somebody who's, part of an SSG that's working on anything that's handmade, there's definitely all of these catchphrases like, local for, vocal for local, and handmade in India, make in India, right? So the opportunity is right, but you need to be able to access online. And one way to do that is, typically most SSGs would have access to, say, an NGO or a social enterprise that's working in the craft sector. Reach out to them for help, because you'll need help with cataloging, with photography, something very basic, but without that, you can't have your product look appealing online, right?
Yeah.
Next is you would need a registration, you would need GST, you would need, other basic fulfillments in order to be able to sell online. So therefore, see whether you can align with a group that can provide that support to you. Many online players themselves are coming up with, ways to sort of help smaller groups by connecting them with, NGOs or social enterprises, right? So the opportunities are there, but this is the time when you can't stay quiet. Opportunities are not going to land up in your lap. You have to take that effort and reach out, make that call, visit somebody's help, right? And not just crafts, but I think Aparna had mentioned agri and, agri processing. Now, if you look at COVID, health, especially anything to do with food and wellness, that's an industry that is really doing well. So a lot of SHGs, again, are making products from home. Some of them have been very, quick to realize when you make a lot of these immunity building foods and, things like that, and these are homemade, organic, there is a huge market for it. Again, there are a lot of groups that are reaching out, especially in metros. They have a huge buyer network. They're reaching out to apartment complexes, you name it. And they've been growing actually 2x month on month, in the last 4 months. That's how there's been a huge surge in demand for anything that's organic and healthy. And a third would be things to do with, say, a home, right? So home cleaners, things that are, again, safer for kids and adults and, persons who are older, anything to do with gardening or, just bringing in some more freshness and greenery into your homes. Even things like menstrual pads, right? There are a lot of opportunities there. And again, a lot of groups are actually enabling women to either become self-entrepreneurs or join a group enterprise or support SHGs, right? So that's one. When it comes to persons with disability, there are actually 22 types of disability, everything from physical disability to visual impairment, intellectual disability, autism. And the response mechanism has to be different for the different groups. Across the board, they're at a higher risk category. Many of them have comorbidities. Many of them are on, obviously, medication, etc. So most of them are staying at home. That is a huge challenge for self-employment. But within this, there are a couple of interesting models that have emerged. For example, many groups like Craftisan also, we've enabled work from home. So we've come up with these small products that can be made at home. We have an online tutorial, and then we actually, once we do the trials, we send out kits so that it can be assembled and made at home, and then we collect it back. I read somewhere about Wildcraft setting up these kiosks where persons with disability could sell masks. So that was something interesting. A lot of them, though, have gone back to their hometowns, right? So in Bangalore, we have this huge alliance called the Disability NGOs Alliance. There are many of us who are part of that network. And I reached out to them to see what everybody is doing. We support many of them. So we do, the work from home is something that's going to reach out to at least 6 or 7 more NGOs apart from our groups. But many of them have expressed that, they are back at home. A lot of them were into trade, right? So self-employment was always, I think, definitely more in demand for persons with disability. But now a lot of those small stores have closed, and, they feel safer back home. So I think for some time, unfortunately, the sector is going to be very badly affected. People are not going to take a health risk. So that's what it is. Any work from home opportunities, and like I said, anything to do with maybe things related to wellness or things that maybe can be done in a group enterprise model could be explored.
Right. Thank you so much, Mayur. I think just in terms of information, that was super helpful. Especially हमारी इस कॉल पे जो महिलाएं हैं, जो यूथ हैं और जो पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटीज हैं, आई थिंक उनके लिए ये इंफॉर्मेशन बहुत ज़रूरी होगी. एंड दिस पर्सपेक्टिव, मोर इम्पॉर्टेंटली, is very important for all of us, whoever is working in any part of the ecosystem, fulfilling any part of the puzzle piece, as we would say it. Thank you so much. I think I'm so inspired by and just so glad that we're having this conversation, and just so insightful, and all of the things that we're discussing are so insightful and rich. I think just keeping in mind the time, and also swiftly moving on to our यूथ themselves. आज हमारे साथ इतने सारे यूथ जुड़े हुए हैं, उनके बहुत सारे सवाल हमारे चैट में, हमारे Q&A सेक्शन में, यूट्यूब के कमेंट सेक्शन में और स्ट्रीम पे आ रहे हैं. So I think we should definitely move the conversation over there and really explore what are some questions that our youth want to ask us. So I'll just take a few seconds to check the chat and pick out a question. Yes. So I think we have an interesting question here. One question that has come up from a participating youth is that she's finding it very difficult to find a job currently, and she feels that since she's a girl, her challenges are multifold. What does she need to do to overcome the gender barrier? I think I would want Nidhi to please answer her question. I think this is a question that a lot of us are also facing. Thank you for asking that question.
So thank you for that question, Richa. Did we get the name of the person asking, or it's an anonymous question, right?
I'm sorry, I think it's anonymous.
Okay. No, I think that's something. And, also one thing on my list was also that it is the responsibility of the youth to make a gender equal world. And if not now, it will not happen, So, perhaps people my generation have faced those barriers, and more so, I think there are other factors which would always add to vulnerability, and gender is one of them. One has to stand by their dreams. I think that's very important, and that was said on this panel quite beautifully. यदि आपको पता है आपको क्या करना है और आपको बिल्कुल उसमें विश्वास है, तो फिर आपको नहीं सोचना है कि आप लड़की हैं या लड़का है. The barriers will come in your way as much as you allow them to be. That's very important, and that's where I always say that self-esteem as well as belief in your own dreams is very critical. So I'm sure by pressures or by barriers, what she's saying, we've had lots of cases in the communities that we work where the peer, I would say the peer leadership programs that we have, where if the girl herself was not able to, even cases of child marriage have been stopped by taking help from friends. So, and we also had a point on the panel that mentors are very important. So I would say that reach out to whoever you really have trust in. Person may not be from your family, could be a counselor, could be your teacher, could be a friend. Make that ecosystem around you which is supportive, and talk to them more often. कभी कभी अपने लिए एक स्टैंड भी लेना पड़ेगा, which is okay. And if you have belief in your own, you believe in your own dreams and belief in your own self, I don't think there'll be any barrier. At times, women also, young girls especially, they take it on themselves that it is their responsibility and what will society say and things like that. Of course, that has to be kept aside, and you have to, I will not say confront to the extent that you are no longer safe, because safety, dignity, and opportunity, three have to go hand in hand, and that's something we are, and again, I think that's also the message on the International Youth Day, that for young people, all these three are important. So take that position, take that position and just walk ahead. This barrier is just in your head, it's not there actually. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Nidhi. I think the three most important
Richa, Richa, if you just allow, can just add a 30 seconds on that one?
Yes.
I don't know where is she from, but I think, and if she's the first time looking for a job or something. But one more thing is also not really, along with everything what Nidhi said, completely true, but also use the opportunity if you are getting anything to do with the volunteering, if you are getting an apprenticeship, till you get what you want. So how do you also look for the opportunity which allows you to learn while you are doing certain things? If you can afford that one, then please do also take that kind of opportunities, because it would ultimately help you in achieving and realizing the dream that you have. Thank you.
That is very very insightful. Thank you, Amit, for adding on to that. Thank you so much. I think safety, dignity, opportunity, and really carving that path for yourself, like Amit and Nidhi mentioned, is really important. I think I have a very close to my heart question that I have just received from a teacher in Bihar, and it's close to my heart because this is something that me and my nonprofit also work on. The question is, and I would like Madan to maybe take a chance to answer, and then of course anyone else can add. Is empathy a key element of 21st century skills, and how relevant is this for young people, especially in the times of COVID in India?
Yeah, I think if I were to keep the answer very short, I will do a font 30 and write a big YES. But
Absolutely.
that it doesn't come easy, right? We are so caught up in our own worlds that we sometimes forget to see what's happening in the world around us.
Yeah.
And remember, as an entrepreneur, empathy is the first point that you need to go, because you need to understand what the problem really is. Only then can you solve the problem. Otherwise, we end up solving a lot of wrong problems, or we end up solving a lot of imaginary problems, and you go around like a hammer looking for a nail, saying, "Mera paas solution hai, problem kya hai?" Right? So I think to be a leader, to be an entrepreneur, and to be successful across the board, empathy is a very critical skill. And it can be learned very easily. It can be taught very easily. If I'm a teacher, if it's coming from a teacher in Bihar, there are, and especially Richa, you're most qualified to answer that with the work that you're doing in Labhya. It's not a rocket science to kind of open the hearts and eyes and ears to empathy. Right? Maybe I'll leave it there, and maybe you can. I think you're far more experienced in terms of trying to make it real.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think definitely just in the past 3 years, looking at how young people can really create spaces for themselves and take ownership of empathy and a lot of other things that encompass empathy, including all the things that we spoke about today, like self-esteem, belief, really being aspirational. It's been really inspiring, and just having the kind of adults around us or having our peers around us to nurture that would be really important, especially during these times when mental health or just generally difficult home environments are really defining how we look at ourselves and how we will look at ourselves during and post COVID. So thank you so much for that. My last question is from Maharashtra, and the question is to you, Amit. How do we ensure that not just students and youth but also parents and guardians care about career guidance? That's a really important question. I think we've been talking about
Yes.
ecosystem enablers. Yeah.
Very important, and that's when you are looking into the ecosystem. I think one of the most important ecosystem is the ecosystem of our family, and that also the whole brings in the concept of what Nidhi has been highlighting in her talks again and again, and all of us, very important. That's family as a unit, and if you try to see it specifically from a gender lens, then it creates mostly a barrier for girls, and Nidhi had said that, so I won't repeat that one. And that's why it's very important. More so may not be true for boys, because boys are, let's say, treated differently because of the existing social norms. But specifically, if you try to put this question from the girls' context, and maybe a little bit also on the boys' context, then it is an important aspect that the counseling or guidance is not. Of course, it is very important for individual youth, boys and girls, so that they realize. And I would say, put it in two different ways. One, when we are providing guidance and counseling and mentorship support to youth, then it develops the capability in her and him to really negotiate with an improved agency within the family. So that's let's say one aspect of this. But simultaneously, we need to, and in certain aspects, to also move into the community and do these kind of counseling, that as a part of our work we have been doing, and specifically the work that we were doing in Haryana, where our focus was definitely creating access to employment for girls and women from Haryana, and Haryana being the kind of societal norms that it has. It was proving a lot of difficulty for us, really, even when we are able to connect the girls with an opportunities. We found that if we were able to join that one, and once we start deep into that, one of the key reasons was she came into the whole program Connect. She got the 21st century skill sets. She were guided. She were connected as per her aspirations and skill set with a particular job that she wanted to do. But because she didn't took her family's permission, or her family was not behind her decision to really go for a job, we were facing a lot of kind of, let's say, dropout. And then we moved into these villages, and Haryana is just one example, but we have been trying to do that. So it's a very important piece. Depending upon a particular local context and the situations, we have to move to work with the community, with the family, involve the local stakeholder, panchayats and others, to really bring that mindset shift, because that's important if you really want, because all of us have been talking about dream and opportunity. But if youth really want to live that dream, and if they have to live that dream, then definitely what it needs is a very strong and encouraging ecosystem, not at the state level or at the central level, but ecosystem at village, in that community, in that family. And for that, it is required. And so that's something I would put it very strongly on that. Much needed. And we all of should be doing, and we are doing as part of our programs, all of us, wherever there is a need. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think, and with that thought of really understanding what an ecosystem means for all of us and how each of us are working towards it, I would like to thank all the youth today who have joined us and who have asked us questions. Just in terms of the questions, अगर आप अपने सवाल हमारे फॉर्म में रजिस्ट्रेशन फॉर्म में लिख सकते हैं तो हम आपको रीच आउट जरूर करेंगे. आई एम सॉरी अगर हम आपके सारे सवाल आज एड्रेस नहीं हुए, बट हमारी अपकमिंग सच होंगे सीरीज वेब सीरीज में जरूर आंसर होंगे. आई थिंक आई कैन प्रॉमिस दैट. So don't worry about that at all. सच होंगे सपने सीरीज के बारे में हम थोड़ी देर में बात करते हैं, बट उससे पहले आई वुड लाइक टू थैंक ऑल ऑफ आवर पैनलिस्ट टुडे फॉर जॉइनिंग अस, फॉर टेकिंग आउट द टाइम एंड फॉर रियली with all your heart celebrating International Youth Day with us. So thank you so much for that. And just one thing before we sign off, हमारे आज कॉल पे जितने भी यूथ हैं, आप प्लीज हमारे सच होंगे सपने यूट्यूब चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें. अगले बहुत सारे हफ्तों में हम अलग अलग तरीके की वीडियोस और कंटेंट लेकर आ रहे हैं, अलग अलग भाषाओं में, हिंदी, मराठी, कन्नड़ा, तेलुगु एंड इंग्लिश एज वेल, जहाँ पे आपके करियर रिलेटेड, अपॉर्चुनिटीज रिलेटेड, सॉफ्ट स्किल्स, जिस भी चीज़ों के बारे में हमने आज बात करी सभी के बारे में और बातचीत होगी, इंफॉर्मेशन शेयर की जाएगी और जानकारी मिलेगी. और अगर आप रजिस्टर करेंगे तो हम आपके साथ 1-on-1 पर्सनलाइज सपोर्ट भी शेयर कर पाएंगे. सो प्लीज हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें और सी यू सून ऑन आवर नेक्स्ट एपिसोड ऑफ सच होंगे सपने. And yeah, with that, I would like to share if any panelists would like to close or share anything. Amit,
No,
Madan.
thank you to you for lovely moderation. Big thank you to everybody who had joined. And on behalf of UNDP, we are definitely very excited with this initiative that we have initiated in partnership with Labhya Foundations. And there are many other pieces that's happening as a part of our interventions in different states. So very much excited, and thank you, Richa, and all the panelists for joining us. It has been a great pleasure and privilege to be part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you so much, Amit. And it's a pleasure to partner with UNDP on this. I'm very excited about the Sach Honge Sapne series. This is just the beginning. I really hope that all of us can work together to really bring this series alive, so that at least the discover and decide part of it for every youth, especially in the deepest parts of India, we are able to reach them and get them to at least get them to start dreaming. So look forward to this. Thank you so much for being here, and I really enjoyed listening and learning from all of you.
Thank you all. Thanks for inviting. Have a pleasant Youth Day evening there. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayura.
Thanks,
Thank
Richa.
you, Aparna. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
So we leave, Richa? Yep.
I think if we could wait for 2 minutes,
Okay, sure.
Labhya might be able to guide us on this.
Yeah,
Labhya?
we can. We will be going offline now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Perfectly fine. Right.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
See you, Amit.